Alright, so today I've got up this alien poker, which is, I really like this game. It's got some pretty unique rules, pretty in-depth rules for a game of this age, and the theme is just like, how cool is it? A bunch of aliens playing poker? I mean, and it's got the Williams sound, so let me boot it up. First problem, it boots into the audit mode. It's actually not going 0404, it's just 04. My phone's making it look like that. That's usually an indication of a dead battery. So this one, it's got a Rotten Dog MPU. I know that the owner swapped that out about 6 months ago or so, but I'm gonna swap it out again and see if maybe it's just ate that battery in 6 months. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do. So I'm measuring the voltage, 0.2 volts. And if you're thinking that's a crappy multimeter, you are absolutely right. My other one tore the leads in two. I'm in the process of trying to get my leads. I soldered them up. I'm kind of gluing them a stress relief on there. So I'm stuck with my Harbor Freight for the day. But anyway, 0.2 volts. So that battery was dead. So that Rotten Dog ate a battery in 6 months. So let's turn it off, turn it back on. And yeah, now it's got its memory, so it's booted. Okay, so I wrote down a list the guy was telling me about. So it's blown a fuse. In particular, the fuse is, I believe he said it was that one right there, which is for the solenoids, I think. I told him maybe in a stroke switch or some other short. Number 10 drop target's not working, so that one there, that drop target's not working. So, or maybe that drop target is shorted and that's blowing the fuse. And he wants to remove the free credit button, which is, oh, right there. There's a little free credit button. I'm painting the legs right now. They were painted silver. I'm painting them a better version of silver, and I'm going to shop the whole game. So it's actually not too bad. It's got new stickers. Might get some new drop target. Those are not exactly white. Plastics, actually somebody's replaced. These are not original plastics. Those are reproduction plastics. They're so nice. Flippers are not bad, so it's doesn't really need too much. Oh, and he's also got a clear overlay, basically a playfield protector. I'm gonna put that on. So I'm not exactly sure if that one, some of those the posts go over it and some of them go around the post. But anyway, I'm going to strip the thing down. I'm going to put it in and then I'm going to repopulate the playfield. So I don't know how much, like I normally wouldn't take that rail off when I do a playfield cleaning, a deep cleaning, but I may have to put that playfield protector in there. I just don't know. We'll have to see when I get there. But first, I want to dig into this solenoid problem. I think it's a solenoid problem based on what the guy told me. So I think right now the game will boot, but it won't kick the ball out. You go to the solenoid test, nothing's working. So I think that fuse is probably blown right now. So I'm going to replace that fuse and try to do a little sleuthing around. So indeed, that back fuse there was blown. I'm not sure. It may say on there, it says 8 amp. I was going to say normally, this is like an aftermarket board to do what I normally do on all these all the system, like 3 through 11. Basically, these two rectifiers from the factory were not fused. So this one puts the fuses. It also put the caps on there. They're not absolutely necessary, but they're nice. So anyway, I'm going to put the fuse back in there. And I'm going to go get a game started, and I'm probably just going to go through and manually trip all the solenoids, and I guess I could measure all the coils. That's probably what I should do. Or I might just burn a fuse. I don't know. It sounds like it's been popping a bunch of fuses already, so maybe I'll just burn another fuse. All right, guys, so the new fuse is in there. I'm going to... Whoa, I heard something lock on right away. Let me check and see if that blew the fuse already. I don't know if I can. Let's see if I can do it one-handed here. No, Something locked on for a second. Yeah, sometimes these old games will do that. They'll snap for a second and it doesn't mean anything. That time it didn't do it. Okay, so let's put some credits on the game. So it's putting credits. I got 6 credits, so I'm gonna start up a game. Yeah. Did not try to kick out the ball. It may have, let me check these other fuses real quick. Okay, so it blew that fuse there, which is the solenoid fuse. By the way, when this game came in, I just checked these fuses real quick, and that had a 30 amp fuse in there. It's supposed to have a 2.5 amp. So, anyway, so something is locking on. I wish I could have seen what was locked on there. I think what I'll do, so I'll pull that out, and I will use one of, if I can find them here. That's a 1 amp. Use some of these breakers. I'm gonna dig through here real quick. All right, so I just wired in a 1 amp breaker. These are like, I had a 3 amp, but this calls for 2.5 amp. I think it is 2.5 amp. It is slow blow, 2.5 amp slow blow. But these is, in essence, are like super slow blow. So the 1 amp, it's really not, shouldn't be anything. I just want to turn it on and see if I can see what is firing when I turn the game on, because it's going to immediately fire here. Well, it didn't. I'm going to set y'all down and maybe check my voltages and or check and see if I blew in. See if I tripped this. Did not trip that. I don't. That fuse looks like it's intact. Well, let's just start a game real quick. Should still have credits if our memory is holding. Yeah. Let me start a game, see what happens here. Okay, so we've got the solenoids are trying. No, they were. They're gone now. So I blew something. And this was just like kind of like halfway. Maybe it's the maybe it's these. He did say that this one was not coming up. So let me take a look at these. Put my eyeballs on them. Maybe that's the problem. So I think I was most wired. Some of these wires were kind of these little stray ends. I think they might have been touching. Additionally, that diode doesn't look very great. So I'm gonna unsolder this, resolder it, put in a new diode, and see what that does for me. I did measure the resistance of all of these coils, and they're all right at about 5 ohms. So the coils themselves are okay. And these other diodes look okay. But actually I measured 5 ohms, so it really couldn't have been touching. Unless it was just real close, and then when it had 40 volts, it jumped with 40, but with like the, whatever my multimeter puts out, just like a half a volt or whatever, that didn't jump, but it did jump with 40. I don't know. Maybe that diode's bad. Anyway, I'm gonna desolder and resolder this and new diode. All right, so I got that resoldered in with the new diode. And by the way, my that breaker had triggered, so I am going to turn the game on. See, I just kicked for a second, but sometimes these games do that, so I'm not sure that means anything at all. I'm gonna click, I'm gonna try to boot up the game here. We still got our 4 credits, our memory is holding. So we still don't have solenoid voltage. We may have blown another fuse. Let me dig around and see if I can find a bad fuse or something. Well, my little 1 amp breaker, it never reset. So I don't know, maybe I broke it. Maybe it just needs more time. It's been like 5 minutes, so I'll set that aside and check it tomorrow. I don't know, maybe I fried it. I'll find that 3 amp, throw it in there. Okay, I got my 3 amp in there. I'm gonna turn it on, see what happens here. Did it trip it? Did it blow that fuse there? Oh yeah, it did for sure. Okay, so I'm thinking I've got one of the transistor that fires these, but it's firing all of them, because it's firing the ones that go up, not the ones that go down, because they're pushing up. So each one of these drop targets has its own own coil to reset. So that's really not good. I'm just gonna visually look at these things to see if any of them look fried. A lot of times they will. Yeah, and then there's all these up here. I guess I could get the manual out and figure out which one does it, or which ones do it, and then there's all these over here. Nothing stands out, looking burnt. But yeah, something's definitely locked on. Not sure what it is. I guess I'm gonna pull that board and start measuring, do transistor test on all these transistors and see if I can find what's bad. I'll probably have a coil that's bad also. So maybe I'll go through here and start checking coil resistances. He said something about this coil here. That one was misbehaving also, so maybe I'll start and measure that. So I just measured the coil resistance on every coil. They were all like pretty normal, 5 to 15. Anything between 2 and say 20 or something is pretty normal. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the motherboard. It's MPU / driver board combo, and check all those transistors and see if one of them's locked on. Well, I did a diode test on every one of these transistors and they all looked good. So maybe just the rectifier died. Maybe that's, I mean, it's a new rectifier that came new on this board, but you know, everything dies. So I'm gonna pull this board off here. So there's a screw there, basically that screws the rectifiers to this backing plate. So I'm gonna pull them off and see if it's okay. So I checked all the rectifiers, or the bridge rectifiers. They were both good. So put my board back in. I turned it on without any of the grounds on here. So so just so you know, the grounds come back to the board. This supplies the power supply. So these provides the voltage. Most of the voltages are right here, I think in here. I think all these are high voltages and 5 volts. So I think all the solenoid voltages are mostly on this one here, I believe. Anyway, they go to the playfield, provides the 40 volts, and each of these little transistors, they ground an individual solenoid. So I am going to start plugging in this board one at a time and figure out which connector is shorted. And I'm going to do that without letting this board boot up, because I'm not going to hook up the power. I think the power comes in, I'm not sure. I want to say right here. There's a digital output there. This board's not very well labeled. It's labeled better than the original, but not as good as some like the Weebly boards. Anyway, so I'm going to start plugging some of these transistors in, the grounding, and see if anything starts to lock on. Well, that strategy didn't work. Everything's plugged in, game's booted up. I've got I got my 40 volts for my solenoid voltage. I guess I'll go ahead and blow another fuse, start up another game. I don't know what to think about this. A little perplexed. Somebody's probably already got it figured out, but I don't. Then I'm gonna press the credit button. Oh, I got the memory fixed. I got that going for me. So it did 1, 2, 3, 4 snap. It didn't do the fifth one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it didn't do the fifth one. Are we still? So we still got the solenoid voltage. So what the heck? What happened? I didn't fix anything. I hate this. Some kind of intermittent BS. So what did I do? I unplugged these, replugged them. I pulled this, put it back. I disconnected all those connectors and put it back. That's all I've done. And now it's not shorting. You know, it's when the game was first booting, it was like trying to fire all this stuff at once. I wonder if the problem is this MPU. These run dogs have a reputation for being kind of crappy. If that is the source of our instability. I don't know. Don't. These are the worst kind of problems to try to figure out, because like right now I've got nothing to fix because everything's working. Well, I've got a couple of minor things like that, but in terms of the game locking on and blowing fuses, I can't. It's hard to fix that when it's not doing it. And from talking to the guy that owned this game, I think in the past it has kind of like it would just blow a fuse periodically, like it wasn't doing it all the time, and then every now and then it would blow a fuse. So it's kind of comes and goes. So it's whatever I've done, I haven't fixed anything. This game is the same. It's just not doing it right now, for whatever reason. So I'm kind of leaning towards the MPU at this point. It could be something on the playfield, something just the way a wire's laying, but I don't know. It would normally pop up all the drop targets, but it seemed like a couple of times when it was like, even before it booted up, it's like kunk, like locking on a bunch of stuff. And I said, that's kind of somewhat normal, and it kind of is, but a couple of times it did it really hard and violently, like it was locking on everything, including like the kicker or the knocker. So I don't know. I'm gonna put this back in. For the moment. So I played a few games, bucking around with this. Every time it's fine now. So I'm thinking pulling this board out and putting it back in. There was a chip that wasn't quite seated or something. I think pulling this board and putting it back in, that was the difference, or that maybe there's a trace that's not quite good or something. But it's a fairly, well, July 22 of 22, so it's less than 2-year-old board. I don't know. So for now, I'm going to try to chase down this drop target. That's the one solenoid that's not working. So I'm going to get out the schematics and see if I can figure out what drives that on this board. So that last drop target is number 4. So if we scroll down to solenoid number 4 there, slide across, it's Q20, like Q21, I gotta scroll again. Yeah, Q21. So I'm gonna go to the MPU, find Q21 or the driver Q, and ground that manually, and it should fire. So Q21 is that one right there. So I've got this one attached to the grounding strap, so if I touch it, it ought to fire. It's not. So I don't know what that one was, but Oh, that's the jack right there next to it. So it's not necessarily an NPU problem, it's a connection problem. That wire is not making it up to the board. So it could be here, it could be actually on the board, not getting to that transistor, but it's probably a lack of continuity between the coil down here and whichever header that comes in on. So again, back to the schematics and figure out which one of these wires it comes in on so I can measure continuity. Or I could just look at the color and try to find the color, because it's probably one of these right next to it. So it's this one here. It's gray and there's a trace of yellow on there. I know it's not this one because that's a power one. It's daisy chain between all these, all the red ones. So we're looking for gray and yellow. And all the other ones are kind of gray and green, so it's going to be a group of gray ones. Okay, so that looks like it's it there, that third one down, which is actually, which one is it? It's actually let's disconnect this sucker. So it's second from the top. So I'm going to measure continuity. Actually, yeah. So I'm going to put my multimeter right there on the tip of that wire, and I'm going to connect the other end with some jumpers to the ground and buzz it and see if I've got continuity from down here to up there. See that wire's intact. I got my multimeter down here. The other thing I hadn't done yet was measure, see if I've got voltage on the coil. I do have 40 volts, so oops, sorry about that. Turn it back off, and I'm gonna hook one end up. Well, I've got one end of my multimeter hooked on to the ground there, and the other end I'm going to try and touch that gray and yellow connector. Second one. I'm gonna do this off camera. Guess you can hear that. It's beeping, and I'm touching the little pin, so I know it's going through there. So the question is, why these pins, I believe, should be connected to the ground tab on all these. So I believe that. I'm going to confirm that with one of the other ones. So I did confirm I've got continuity between that second pin where it goes and that tab there, Q21. So that I've got continuity all the way to the tab of that transistor. So from there, so I don't know why, because I went from there to here to ground. That should have. I don't know how that didn't work. Because I'm basically, when I did that, I'm pulling the electricity from that side of it. So it's now that is not. It's not the right coil. It's close. It's a 23,750 instead of a 24,750. I wouldn't think that'd be enough difference to make any. And they have almost the same resistance. But I don't know, maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna hook it back up and ground it again manually and see if it's even trying to pull. Okay, let me show you this. Watch this. There's that Q21. Fixed. So what did I do? I took that off and put it back on again. That's the only thing I did. So it's a bad connector. Yeah. Huh. Maybe this whole thing needs to be repinned. Because remember, I was having all the whole thing with it locking up and everything. I said maybe one of these chips was not seated. Maybe, maybe one of the inputs was not quite right. But I don't know. If it doesn't get the voltage, it shouldn't boot. If it does get the voltages, it should should boot and be okay. It has its own watchdog circuit to know if it has a reasonable 5 volts, and if it doesn't, it should not boot. So that could keep it from booting, but it shouldn't make it lock on and stuff like that. It should be the board should be smart enough not to allow itself to do that. But I think clearly that problem there is a weak connection there. Actually, it's this one here. Yeah, that second one down. I pulled that off and put it back on, and it's not the header pin because that's a brand new board. Well, I actually didn't even look at the header pins on that because it's brand new. Maybe they are crappy. I wouldn't think so. Maybe I should have looked. Okay, so it's the next morning. Watch what I've got here. I'm gonna knock those downs. Now 2 of them won't come up. The first one, the last one. If I take this harness, I got one of them. Anyway, that's got to be repinned. I'm pretty certain that's the problem. So I'm just gonna take a moment and put on a new connector there. All right, so I repinned that connector, and I'll knock these down and reboot the game. They should pop up. Cool. As for the intermittent locking on and frying the solenoids, I don't know. I still don't know what it is. I don't know. It's not doing it. I guess I'll keep it for a while and play some games on it. In the meantime, I'm going to strip this playfield and clean it and maybe rebuild these pop bumpers. I don't know. They're not horrible. They'd look better with new ones though. Maybe touch up a little bit here and here. Otherwise, the playfield's pretty good shape. There's a little wear right there and there. Probably this other saucer. That saucer's actually pretty good shape. And that saucer's also good shape. That one's pretty hard to hit. You gotta have a pretty good solid shot. Or just on a plunge, kind of get a lucky bounce off something, bounce up in there. I guess you could get it from this side too, kind of same way. Get it like a bounce off there and get up in there. Anyway, so I was going through the lamp test. Let me show you what it is. So to get into the lamp test, press that momentary down, press that once, pull that back up, and then press it again, and you go through the test. First one's display. Now I'm in the lamp test. So all the lamps should be coming on and off. And I believe everyone in the playfield is working. Got a GI light that's, I noticed that one earlier, it's twinkling, it's on off. That one needs a little attention. But I've got this one controlled light right here that's not working. Oh, yeah, that's the only one. And that'd be the ball in play, I guess. So anyway, ball in play is kind of important. And I've gone through this already. So I measured between that wire and here, and I've got my 5 volts. With the digital multimeter, you never quite get the 5, it'll go 0, it'll go to like 2 or 3, because it's like kind of taking an average over time. Here, I'll show you what it looks like. If I can do it chopstick style with a swinging door. That's what it says. So occasionally I get like the 1.5. It never gets up to 5 because it's this thing lags. If I had an analog meter, you'd see it go 5 0 5 0 5 0. Anyway, it's the same as these other ones. So I have the 5 volts getting to it. Let me show you one more thing. Let me turn the game off. I cleaned the socket. I couldn't get it to work. Usually, if you're messing around with it, it'll occasionally blink on if it's kind of a bad connection. But so I put this on diode test, because the other thing is it's got to go through this diode. Let me show you one of these diodes that's working. So you put the negative on the banded side. I think I've got that right. Yeah. And you got like between 0.4 and 0.7, 0.547 on this one. It's open. So I think the problem with this one is just a bad diode. So guess I wasn't showing you that. So that bad diode, I'm going to cut that diode out, put in a new one. So let's see if that fixes it. I got that new diode soldered in there, and I'm in the lamp test, and sure enough, that was it. So I think I've got all the lamps running. I might go ahead and see it just tapping on it. So I probably managed to fix that one from the bottom. It's probably just bad socket. Sorry for the flickering. So on these type of sockets that have this little spring in there, oftentimes the poor contact is between that spring and inside of there, and kind of working that will scrub it clean and will make it much more reliable. And the other thing is, if you've got easy access from the top, just grabbing the bulb and in and out, scrubbing it will even do a better job. But just here from the bottom, if I can find my, so zoomed in. It's kind of a quick fix, but oftentimes it's actually a permanent fix, or at least a semi-permanent fix. I'm gonna flip it back down and see if I can get it to turn on and off by banging on the playfield. Well, that did not do it, but I can, if I just wiggle this little spring on the back side there, that's me wiggling it, turning it. I can turn it on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. I can basically turn it on and off by will, just by wiggling that little spring. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and solder that spring to that. Well, y'all can't see what I'm doing. Solder that spring to that tab. It's going to be hard to solder that because that spring is not really going to want to take the solder very well. So I'm going to file a little bit and use some flux, and then put it just tack that spring down, and I think that'll make that a permanently good connection. Okay, so you see I got that soldered on there. So if you're thinking, well, that spring is like what compresses, and depending if that solder sucks down that spring very far, it might be difficult to get the bulb out. You might be right. That bulb might be very difficult to get out. It is an LED. If I can get my LED, so that bulb should pretty much last forever. I mean, they don't really last forever, but it should last a really, really long time. And you can probably get it out. If not, well, then you have to replace the socket. That may or may not ever happen, and if it does, it's liable to be years and years in the future. So I'm happy with this. That took me like a minute to do that, to pull that out and resolder it with a new socket. First, you got to buy a socket and stapled. It's a pain in the butt. This, fast and easy, and it's a good solution. Going to last probably maybe the life of the game, at least until somebody decides they want to change the LEDs. And even then, I bet, well, I'll find out when I strip this game, because I'm going to strip it and I'm going to take that cover off. I'll be able to see if I can get that socket out, the bulb out. I probably will be able to, might not. But if I can't, I'm not worried about it, because I'm going to use all these bulbs anyway. So some little time down the future, somebody wants to get it out, then they can swap that lamp socket. Anyway, so I'm happy with that. Y'all might have saw this coil here dangling before. That coil stop was missing, and this was dangling. I guess it fell off on the way here. I found a coil stop, and I just had one in inventory. I put it on there. I need to test to make sure this is working. So this is actually the trip that makes them all come down. They don't really come down very well when it's upside down. Let's see if it works here. Yeah. It needs a little bit of gravity to help. But anyway, so I haven't checked that coil, make sure it operates. I'm going to do that. But I think everything else is working, except for the potential gremlin of the thing locking up upon boot that it was doing when it first came in, and I'm still not exactly sure why it's not doing that now. Wild. So I've been thinking a little bit more about this board sometimes basically locking on. And the thing about it, it does it when you first turn on the game, before the game's booted or anything. It's the time period when the watchdog circuits should keep anything from allowing anything to fire, and it's not. And I think it's a problem with this MPU. Obviously it's a new MPU. We're 2-year-old, so I don't know. I think it's a crappy board, is basically what I want to say. I don't know. Maybe not, but that's kind of my thinking anyway. It hasn't done it in probably 15, 20 games, so I don't know. But in the meantime, I'm going to strip down this playfield, clean and wax. Jane's been off this whole week, so I am going to do my best to touch up that, and y'all see. We'll see how much better Jane is than I am when I go do this. And I'll put a little bit of Varathane over those. And then, actually, I don't really need to put the Varathane down that badly because we're putting that clear protector over the whole thing, so it won't get anywhere. I'm gonna, strip everything off, clean the post, new rubbers. I don't know. I'm thinking black rubbers maybe. I think it would go with the theme. Sometimes the red posts and black rubbers look pretty good. I'm kind of leaning that way. We'll see. So I'll put y'all in fast version here, and y'all can watch, or you can fast forward if you like. So what I just went through and I did it snap, snap. Each one of these snaps is a picture, snap. So that allows me to see that's got a head on it. These are just regular screws, and I don't know if this one, if this has different heights of posts. These posts are all the same on this game. Like really these two could be short ones, ideally. That way that head would not be touching the bottom of the plastic. I don't know if this game originally, they may have all been the same size on this one. Later on, those probably would have been shorter ones, the tall ones and short ones. But anyway, I just take a snap of each little bundle and how the rubber goes. It's pretty obvious on most games, but sometimes not. Pull those things off. So anyway, I just get a picture of everything. Makes it easier to put them together. So this first pass, I'm going to use some naphtha. I've got the same stuff as Zippo lighter fluid, which you'd think is like very scary to use on a playfield. It's actually one of the safer things. And this is actually not Zippo lighter fluid anymore. It's actually, I have a big gallon can of naphtha, and I just refill this because I like the applicator. That's got a pretty little squirt bottle. But you can see it really does a pretty good job of cleaning up the dust. It also cuts the wax off pretty well. So and if the game is well waxed, you almost have to get the wax off before you can get down to the dirt. So I'll put you all in fast motion here. So the playfield looks cleaner. It still doesn't look great. It could use some polishing in here. Just kind of give you an idea of how much dirt I got off. That rag was clean when I started, so not that much. That the old red rubber that was stuck to this. I cut that right off. So I'm gonna use try some Novus 2 and see what more I can do here. So most of y'all know this, but some of you maybe don't. Novus 2 it's a polish basically. So it's got fine abrasive in there. So it does scrub and it cleans, but it also polishes, and you know it's an abrasive though, so it's, you know, use it as such. All right, so I cleaned it up again with naphtha. So the playfield looks super dull because I mean every bit of the wax is gone. So it's like looks worse than it did when I started at the moment, but it's clean and it's almost completely wax free. Got a couple places where I got to clean up a little more. But what I want to do here is I want to get these things touched up, and then we'll put down some wax. And this thing, once we start putting down some wax, it's going to start looking a lot better. It's not going to ever look fabulous. I mean, this thing's had a ton of games, so the paint is past its prime. That's for certain. But we can make it look a lot better than it is now, for sure. So I'm going to get out the paints, and y'all will see how well I can do that, and that, and that, and that. And I think I'll probably stop with those four. I might get the black paint pen. It's easy to get the little black marker. It's not a magic marker, it's a black paint pen, and just start touching up the black lines because it's so easy. Like even like that, if you just draw the black line through there, and like if you just extend that big black bar out through there, I don't know if it's supposed to go out there or not, but you can just imagine it goes out there and fill up most of that with black, and then, you know, you can make most of it go away with just black pen. Actually, I forgot, that's underneath the Mylar. Never mind, that's staying. Forget that, strike that. Oh, and we got some more of the what was white underneath there. Again, that's not really super visible, but you know, I'm not really gonna have to mix up any white. I might do something with that too. So Jane came in today and got this polished and waxed up, and it looks a lot better now. And I'm going to, before I get these put across, I'm going to put on this playfield protector. So, oops, there's only one way it can go because it's not a symmetric playfield, so I know which way is up and down. So it's got like a pull away kind of adhesive on either side. Actually, there's no adhesive to the product. It's just kind of, I don't know, self-adhered, just this little clear mylar kind of stuff. So I'm gonna take the back off, lay it down, then I'm gonna pull the top off. Well, I got it down except for that. That rail's gonna have to come off, and that little gate's gonna have to come out also. Otherwise, it's down, and then we'll take those two things off, and we'll get the thing laid down, and I'll pull off this top clear or kind of light blue cover. So this thing fits pretty well. This is hitting right there. I might just snip that off, and that is hitting right there. I might snip it off. The other alternative is take the post off, put it on top, but then the post is not level. So I think the thing to do is just snip it. And then this one here, it's hard to see, but see how it's hitting the rail on the inside right there, which is causing it to bow up. So that needs to be trimmed a little bit to get it to sit in there. That's pretty well centered on the switches there. Yeah, the whole thing here needs to go to the left a little bit, about like that. But then, yeah. Never been a fan of these things, frankly. Yeah, it doesn't want to stay. It's hitting right here, which is keeping it from staying over to the left. So I'm gonna have to take this up and down and trim a little bit to get it to fit. So be a process of elimination, eliminating a little here, a little there, maybe a little here, and just trim a little bit until it lays down flat. All right, so I did some trimming right there, a little bit right there. It was like right here, it just kind of bulged out. I don't know why it was like that. And I trimmed a little bit on this, and it's laying there flat. It does have a little bit of, it doesn't adhere, so there's a little bit of freedom that it can wiggle around with. I don't know what to say about that. I'm tempted to pull up one of these and kind of lock it in place. I don't know. It's not really getting up against the post. It's like hitting right there and a couple other places. It's mostly hitting up against rails. Anyway. All right, so I got the game all put back together. I had to trim this a little bit more right there. I got it, I think it's all in there pretty good. I was gonna play a couple games, booted it up, and blew this fuse for the solenoids again. This game, every time it boots up, it's like, when it first turns on, it's like, and I think it's locking on some solenoids. So it makes a hum, like a transformer hum, not like a solenoid's locking on, but it's like, I don't know, it's not a pleasant sound. I'm suspect of this board as a whole, and so I've got a brand new Weebly board that will plug right in there, so I'm going to try that and see if the problem is indeed on this board. I think it probably is. So pull this board one more time. Hopefully it's just one more time. And throw that Weebly board in there. I'll have to, that one there is set up for Disco Fever, so I'll have to change some dips settings, kind of like on this one. You can pick the game probably right there. I think, yeah, they're right there, so that's pretty nice. Anyway, I'm gonna open up this Weebly one and see if that eliminates my problem. Okay, I got this Weebly board in there, and at first glance it looks like everything's surface mounted. It is, but normally I wouldn't like that, but the nice thing about it is all these transistors, there's actually little solder pads. So if you blow a transistor, you can desolder these surface mounted transistors pretty easily, and then the holes are there to replace them. So it's still very functional. So I'm a real fan of all of Weebly's products. I mean, they even got the little keyholes in there, which are, it took Williams and Bally like forever to do that. So anyway, got my fuse replaced in here. I'm gonna boot it up, and hopefully we don't get this big long when I turn it on. We'll see. It was a little bit, but it actually wasn't near as bad as it was before. I don't think we're booted. Maybe we're in audit mode. Let me turn it off and on again. Yeah, now we're booted. Wow. So before, every time you turned it on, it was like something would make this huge noise. Now there's no noise at all. So the problem was this. I don't know what's wrong with it, but I suspect it's something to do with the watchdog circuit is not watching well enough. It's allowing things to fire before the game's booted up, because that's the whole point of the watchdog circuit, and that's what it's doing. It's firing coils and locking things on before the game has booted. So, and this is, like I said, I think this is a 2022. Yeah, right there, 2022. So, I don't know. I'll give that back to the owner. I think they just bought a new board. Anyway, tired of wasting enough time with that deal. Those Weebly boards are not that board there. I don't know, it's like $350, something like that. It's not too awful expensive, especially when you consider it replaces two of the other boards. And those other boards they're kind of hard to work on, to be honest, because it's somewhat difficult to diagnose which one of them is causing the problems, because they both have to be working for the game to fully boot. So you end up swapping boards, having a known good driver board with the MPU to get, see if that works, go back and forth. And they're much harder to work on than the Bally's, I'd say. But anyway, of the same time period. So I think that has fixed the problem. Let's see if I click a game on. Oh, I probably don't have any credits. We'll feed it a couple of credits here. I think that was the wrong. I don't know if it said the right words or not. I guess that said the right thing. Royal flush. May not have a ball in it. Anyway, let me start this thing over again. I don't think it. I may not have the right game queued up. I thought I did. I'm gonna start up a game right now. It said you win. That's not the right game. Let's see. It's supposed to be on, off. I thought on. Like they're all on, but except the last one's off. That's what I've got. Well, go look at the manual again. So I misread. It's on. Switch 7 is off. 8, don't care. So I wasn't paying it. I just saw the last one was off. So 7 needs to be off. So I've got it set up for Algar. I've got them basically all 1 through 7 on. So I need to turn it off and turn switch 7 off, and then I'll have Alien Poker. All right, so now I got 7 and 8 off. And again, 8 doesn't matter. So let's see. I think I'm out of credits. I'm going to give myself a couple a second ago. Let's see. That's what it's supposed to say. Alien Poker, you deal. Yeah, I didn't try to kick the ball. I just don't have a ball in here. So, I guess I'm going to, well, I can't really quite play a game because I don't have flippers put back in. Had them all adjusted real nice, but now I had to take them off to put the plastic protector in. Pinball condom. That's what I call it. Anyway, throw that sucker away. Get this thing, flippers back on, play some games, and make sure that for sure is not blowing anymore, I think. But I believe, based on just the way it boots up without making all the noises, I think that took care of the problem. So, hope you liked the video. If you do, click like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. So I came in the next morning, got my flippers on, gonna do some test playing. And of course, you're gonna find some more stuff. But this stuff is kind of interesting in a bad way. So I was playing the first game, and I was getting phantom tilts. I pulled the tilt bob off there. I was afraid I might be shaking it a little bit too, and I wasn't. So not only is it tilting during the game, it will whatever credits you've got on the game. If you're playing a 1-player game, if you've got 3 credits left, it will start a 4-player game. So you're getting phantom tilts and credit switches all at the same time. So that bottom right light there is the tilt. So that'll be on, and you'll increase up to a 4-player game if you got 4 credits. And that all takes place at the same time every time it happens. So I'm thinking I'm gonna pull up the manual, and I bet there's probably a column or a row that those switches are on the same thing. I'm guessing it's this, and this whole thing over here has been hacked quite a bit. So I don't know, something's probably shorted. I'm guessing. We'll pull up the manual first and see where those 2 switches reside. So here's the switch matrix. So the plumb bob tilt, the roll tilt, the credit button, and all those coin switches, and the slam tilt, and the high score reset, they're all on the same column there. So I'm guessing, I don't know, one of them's grounding out slightly. There's wires hanging. One of the diodes is bad, something along those lines, where it's pressing one and it's doing at least a couple of them. I have, sometimes there's these rectangles where you get 2 over here and you get a phantom, but I'm getting 2 phantoms. So I'm getting either, well, the ball roll tilt or the plumb bob tilt. Those are different switches, so I don't know which one of those I'm getting actually. It's not the slam tilt, because it's not ending the game, it's just ending the ball. And I'm getting the credit button at the same time. I think I'm just going to lay my eyes and try to check out, look at the wires and see if I can find anything amiss. Well, here's, oops, sorry for that. Here's the first thing I see. This grounding strap is actually, that whining is Django. You'd think somebody's murdering him. That grounding strap, I think, is touching this switch back here. And that's not good, having a switch matrix grounded. So I may just run a little screw in there to hold it up against that, and I'm going to do that first and see if that alleviates the problem. Okay, so there's my first attempt at fixing this, and I'm going to play a game or two, and it was actually doing it pretty quickly, so almost like within 15-20 seconds of the ball playing around, it would tilt and add credits. So I'm going to play it and see what happens. Well, it did it again. Just tilt up, started a 1-player game, and now I've got on player, I put 3 credits on, and now I've got 3 players on the game. So that wasn't the problem, although that probably still needed to be taken care of. So I'm gonna have to look further. I'm gonna pay particular attention to these credit switches. They're a mess. Originally there was this right here was wired up to a credit button, and these switches are kind of a mess. That diode's hanging there. This one's credit switch is intact, and this one's, I believe these 2 wires right here actually go to this switch right here. So that one's not wired to anything. Kind of a mangled up mess. Gonna have to look around and see if I can find something else. Alright, I'm back at this Alien Poker. I've got the switch matrix. It's a bunch of lines and yellow dots and everything. So tells you I'm in switch hell right now. Switch matrix hell. I've kind of simplified the situation here. What I've realized, I was playing it, and you don't really know what's going on. You're playing it, all of a sudden it tilts. And I started, so I was kind of looking at, ball roll tilt or plumb bob tilt. I wasn't sure what was doing it, and then sometimes I was getting some other random stuff. Right flipper would, sometimes it would start a new game. I'd be in a game and it would add a player to it. I didn't know what was doing it. Well, it was the right flipper lane change was doing that. I didn't know that. So basically, what I've gone through the diagnostic menu, and I've realized that basically if I press the right flipper stand up, it lights up every single one of these. Likewise, drop target number 10, it closes every single one of these switches. The stand-up target, or stand-up switch, that's the little tiny switch on the back of the drop target, it lights up every single one of those. So this entire column, it's driven, the columns are driven by this connector right here. So I'll just buzz them for you, you'll see. So I'm gonna start at the bottom here. So it's just buzzing high. That's the column of concern. And it's dead, it's just low. So the problem is with the board. What I don't know is whether there was something on the playfield that caused that, because that's a brand new board. I just put it in there. So that's a little concerning. Fortunately, like I said, I like the stuff the Weebly does here. All these chips are socketed, so I mean, I don't even have to pull the board out. I just got to figure out which chip is of concern, and it's probably going to be one of these over here, and pull the chip and put in a new one. I don't know if I've got them, but if I do, it'll be a pretty simple swap. So I'm going to go through the schematics and try to figure out which one it is, and I might probe around a little bit more, try to figure out exactly where it's, oops, put that on the ground, figure out where it's going dead. So for the schematics for this game, for all these 3 through 7s, I always go to there's a website that's got the firepower and somebody's digitized them. They've got real good drawings. So see these switch columns, and I'm number 3 there. So anyway, it's IC 17 and 18 drives the columns. There's a bunch of other little capacitors and resistors. It's probably not that. It's probably 17 or 18. So if I pull up here the schematics, 17 is 7406 and 18 is 7406. I've got a bin that says 7406. I don't know if I've got any in there. I'll dig around and see if I've got one. All right, so I'm gonna try to find, so that third pin is at 2M2 2J23. So that's it. So it's IC 18 and it's 5 and 6 is IC 18, 5 and 6 is the potential culprit. So there's 17 and there's 18. So I start buzzing these. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's the input, that's the output. So I think that chip is bad. So I'm gonna turn the game off, pull it out, put it in that other one and see if that fixes it. Just for fun, I'm gonna put my new chip in this IC tester and let's see if it will see what it is. So it says 7406-5, whatever the 05 is. And here is the one I just pulled out. So if I can't identify it, that means it's a bad biscuit. Not found. Yep. So that is garbage. So I'm gonna put this other one in there and hopefully my problems are eliminated. I'm still a little concerned. I did find one, well, there's probably lots of wires that shouldn't be touching. I'll show you here in a second what I found under the playfield. I haven't fixed it yet, but I'm going to. Okay, I swapped out that chip and man, that was nice having that socketed. All right, so let's see if buzz this third one down, see if we got buzzing. We do have buzzing just like the rest of them. So it's fixed for now. Before I plug in the switches, that's the columns, that's the drive, and that's the receiver. I'm going to fix this little issue I found. I don't know if it's the source of the problem. There's lots of kind of shoddy soldering underneath the playfield of this game. A lot of games of this vintage have been a lot of work on it, and not everybody did it as well as they might have. But I'll show you what I got. So here's what I found. That wire right there. Zoom you in a little bit. Although it wasn't stuck out here, it was pushed up. I'm not going to touch it. It's not hooked up in the back, but still I don't want to. Was touching that big blob of solder there. So, you know, if you're going to do this, you really ought to put some heat shrink. If not, at least put some electrical tape around it. Or masking tape, duct tape, something. Don't leave it bare. So I'm going to desolder that and I'm going to put some heat shrink over it. And again, I don't know that's a problem, but probably shouldn't be. I mean, that should really just connect the two sides of the switches together. I don't think that really should be the problem, but I don't know. I don't think so. But I'm going to take care of it while I'm under here, and then I'll plug in the connectors and see if the game's working. Just for fun, I pulled up this Rotten Dog here, and so here's the same, that's where the columns come in, and I don't know that there is a 7406 on this one. I think they used different chips. They didn't use the original one, and really not much is socketed except the processors and the PIAs, so like all the smaller chips are not. So doing this same repair I just did on this board, much more of a pain in the butt. Well, that fixed it. I've got a couple more things to do. Got to get a big black rubber for this. Get that little nasty hair off there. It's out of black rubbers. I got to move the drop targets forward a little bit. You can kind of see they're kind of crooked like that. So this one doesn't fall very well because it's up against the rubber. Got to do those two things and put the pop bumper caps back on, and this one's going to be ready to go. Hope you liked the video. If you do, click the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.